It's game week 33 in the championship. My oh my, where's the time go? And with me to reminisce on seasons past and the nightmare of the future, it's my co-host, there's Mark Ryman. How are we getting on, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just pretending it's 2 years ago. I don't know about you. I'm having a whale of a time. It's bloody awful. Can a season drag and go ridiculously quickly at the same time? Because that's how it feels.
Yeah, well, it's good for some, isn't it? For those
I'm sure it is.
long-time listeners of the channel, you know, we're Luton fans, and it's not a good season propping up the bottom of the championship. Just a reminder, though, we don't just do Luton content here. We do championship content too. If you want to have a good time and we discuss your team's success, I've forgotten what success is, but if you want to hear about some of your team's success, just hit that subscribe button, and we do lots of this championship stuff, even if our team aren't going to be in the championship next year. Right, let's kick this off with managerless Blackburn Rovers versus Plymouth Argyle.
I've gone for a 1-1 for this one. Plymouth, for the last two games, excellent. And my
God, won 5-1.
What a statement that was. Yeah. Anyone who thought that they might have been a bit knackered after the Liverpool win suddenly realised that that might not be the case. What a result that is for them. And a real statement of intent. I don't think many people knew much about their manager, but clearly he's got them playing. And worth bearing in mind, without their talisman of days gone by in Morgan Whittaker. Really impressive. Now, will Blackburn capitulate now Eustace has gone? I think probably yes, but maybe not as soon as Saturday. So that's my thinking. And obviously, if you go on more than just the last couple of games, then I think that Blackburn at home will hold Plymouth, but I could see them winning it. I could, because I think they're really on a charge now. Just see how long that will last. And obviously they've got an easy fixture, haven't they, Plymouth, in the next round of the FA Cup. So in Manchester City, if you weren't aware already, God, don't come much more difficult. But yeah, I think 1-1.
Yeah, I've gone 1-0 Blackburn. I don't think the wheels will come up. I don't think the wheels will come off this quickly for Blackburn Rovers. I agree with you. I think Eustace has made a very good move for his career. Immediately challenging. We'll talk about him a bit later when we talk about Derby. Plymouth, very good result. Very good result. Playing a Millwall team that won 3 in a row. Essentially, whenever Millwall look like they're going to get sucked into a relegation battle, put their foot on the gas pedal and zoom, they just motor up the table. But I think this time, Blackburn at home, a bit too strong. They might get a couple back from injury. A statement from the players maybe, because the players are decent. And I reckon they could win this one. Right, on to, it's a derby. It's might not be Wales, but I'd be staring at maps in preparation for this.
You've been doing some homework. This is better than usual. Yeah, absolutely.
Cardiff City versus Bristol City.
Yeah, over the 7. So it's obviously not quite the intensity of the Cardiff Swansea derby, but Bristol seem to have a bit of a rivalry with nearly all the teams around them. But Cardiff have been absolutely terrible, I think is the best word for it. And, apart from their entertaining win in the Cup, have not shown anything really. And Bristol City have been on and off, but they won their last game convincingly against Stoke. So I've gone for a 2-1 Bristol City away win in the early fixture, because I don't know with Cardiff. You never know with Omar Rizal's side on when they're going to turn things around, but it is one extreme or the other. And at the moment, the negatives far outweigh the positives. I think their only win recently has been against the team least in form at the time in Derby. So not putting much on that. So 2-1 Bristol City.
So I've gone 1-1 here. Cardiff being very streaky. That 7-0 obviously knocked them through a loop. and then Portsmouth did a number on them. But prior to that, their form was pretty good. Bristol City, on the other hand, I maintain they don't have quality in that team. Lord knows how they're seventh in the table. It's kind of like Blackburn. It's like, how'd you get up there? I fell.
Yeah.
for the Little Britain stuff. Honestly, don't know how Bristol City are doing it. I think it's just a case of all the teams around them. They're all so streaky, which means a lot of the teams sort of chasing the playoffs have been able to sort of throw their hat into the ring for it. But yeah, I just don't see a winner in this one. 1-1. And on a side note, if we were ever going to do merch, I think like a T-shirt with the map of England and the two furthest clubs away from it with the words, "Is this a derby?" that would sell like hotcakes, wouldn't it?
There you go. Yeah.
Right, on to Hull versus Norwich. These two clubs are not that close to each other, as far as I'm aware.
No, they're not.
I've gone 1-0 Norwich, although Norwich have been mega streaky. Back-to-back wins against Swansea and Watford, and since then a draw and a loss. But Hull are struggling right now. Like, initial signs of looking good, but it's all gone a bit Pete Tong once again.
Yeah. And all of that makes absolute sense. I've gone 2-0 Hull because it's the Championship, and that's my justification for it. It feels like one of those games. Who saw the 3-0 against Sheffield United coming, and they've clearly not backed it up, have they? Loss against Stoke and then a 2-0 loss against Burnley, although it's Burnley. I said this in the last pod. I'm not convinced by Norwich as a team. I agree that they've had injuries and players missing for gobbing on other people, which is fair enough. But I'm still not convinced of them as a team, but just amazing individuals. And if those individuals don't turn up for whatever reason, then a lot of what makes Norwich a threat disappears with them. And that's sort of my reasoning. But you're right, it goes against the logic, but I've gone 2-0 Hull, Championship classic.
Well, I can't wait for your Luton Town against Sheffield United prediction then. But look, when there's a sergeant, there's a way, and he's really what Norwich were missing. But here we go. Big game at the top of the table-ish. It's Leeds United versus Sunderland. I've gone 2-1 Leeds here.
Yeah.
I don't think Sunderland are going to be pushed over too easily, but I do think Leeds are just going to have far too much for them. They're going to be clinical.
Yeah. I've gone with the same thing. I went for 3-2, which you might look at Leeds' defensive record and say, where's those two goals coming from? I think...
From Melia.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. But I think Sunderland have that potential to score goals against anybody. I mean, how much can you take from the Luton game, really? I mean, Luton Town, the club where it's sort of opposition anything you want versus Luton 0. I mean, it's up to you how much you score. We'll let you do whatever you want. Sunderland chose 2. Why not? But... It's like watching an adult team play against 7-year-olds. Like, how much do you gain into how good they are? So
they didn't get out of second gear.
Well, first maybe exactly that. So it is quite hard to judge. I mean, prior to that game, I think Sunderland had a bit of a dip. Obviously, the 2-2 against Watford prior to that. So yeah, I think Leeds are too strong for them in short. But I think it'll be an entertaining one. 3-2 maybe just optimistic, but I think they're both amazing attacking sides. Sunderland leaky at the back. Leeds less so, but yeah, 3-2.
Yeah, if you think about, and we'll talk about this more in our recap in the Luton preview against Sheffield United. If you think about those first 5 minutes where Luton were sort of knocking on the door when it was still 1-0, like if that were Leeds would have scored a goal.
Yeah.
Or 2 at that point. But Luton Town are absolutely toothless. And speak of the devil, he shall appear. It's Luton Town versus Sheffield United.
Yeah, you said, I wonder what your Luton prediction's going to be. I predict Championship madness, but I'm not an idiot. Luton Town 0, Sheffield United 2. Look, I think there's a real danger with the way that Luton play. I don't think many Luton fans would have gone up to the Stadium of Light, and fair play to the few hundred that did, by the way, on a Wednesday night. What an absolute disaster of a journey back that would have been. But there's not many Luton fans that would have seen Luton getting anything from that game, but they didn't show anything. They looked beaten before the game had started, but bar about 8 minutes total in the whole game, I think. And Sheffield United are far too good. I've heard Luton fans saying, yeah, but we're at home. But we're at home against a very, very wily side who know how to beat teams, ugly and pretty, under Wilder. And of course, they did it in the Premier League. Wilder is a pretty canny operator. They've lost 1 in their last 8. Luton haven't won since before Christmas. For me, it's a clear Sheffield United win and a comfortable one. Luton Town 0, Sheffield United 2.
The magic of the Championship. You never know what's going to happen. No, but I've gone Sheffield United 1, Luton Town 0. I did have this down as a 1-1, but I think that was just me being very optimistic. I'm crazy. I changed it. Maybe I should put a 0 after Sheffield United's 1, and that would be more likely. They're going to be camped out in Luton Town's half pretty much for the entire game. We'll see what happens. But I don't think it's going to be a pretty one. For more about this game, we're going to preview it. Check it out on our channel, both Hatters and Blades. Check it out because we're going to be talking about it. Right, Middlesbrough versus Watford. I've gone 2-1 Middlesbrough. They were unlucky. They got outfought by Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Ryan Giles looking an astute piece of business for Middlesbrough.
He does look good. But then again, I think he was only ever going to perform for that club. I think he's been craving for a move back there since the moment he moved to Luton in the Premier League, personally. But he's playing, he's performing. Having said that, they've been unlucky a few times, but the reality of it is that they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. And Watford in even worse form. But then again, the last 2 games were against Sunderland and Leeds. Difficult to know how much to read. I've gone for a 1-1 for this one because I think, Middlesbrough can easily blow teams away, and they've looked good in spells, but they've just not converted it into full 90 minutes, and they've made stupid mistakes to allow teams to come back against them. It's been their story really probably under Carrick for the entire time he's been there. The potential of Middlesbrough when they play well is to be up there in the automatics, but they've never been able to string that consistency together. So I think that's that. Watford are on a downward spiral. So maybe it continues. I see them getting a point here though. 1-1.
So I've backed Middlesbrough to sort of stop their rot and sort of resume their playoff chase. They're just outside the playoffs. It's crazy how 3 losses in a row, and they're not even out the playoff picture at all. They're only 3 points off West Brom. I think they've made some good signings. Iheanacho hasn't quite hit the ground running yet, but I think he will. Watford, don't know what's happening there. They're not too far off the playoffs either, even with the horrendous run of form that they found themselves in the last 7. I think they've only picked up 2 or 3 points. It's absolutely mad. So yeah, I don't see Watford getting anything out of this one, but also I don't see Watford being threatened by being sucked into the relegation battle at all.
No.
I really don't. But I don't see them picking up too many points for the rest of the season.
Yeah, likely, especially with all the stuff off field doesn't help, does it? As it never does for Watford.
No, but they can reset in the summer, get a new manager in, and we'll see what happens. Here's another team that I don't think has a chance of being pulled into the relegation battle. Millwall versus West Brom. And as I said earlier, Millwall, they hadn't won in something crazy 10 games, and they win 3 on the spin and get out of the relegation trouble. I've gone for a West Brom win 1-0 here.
Yeah, I agree with you on your first point. I don't think Millwall are in trouble now because of that, although they were very much so in the mire, but Alex Neil's turned things around there. I think West Brom win it 3-1. But maybe that's also biased based on the Plymouth result. Obviously, that's going to affect things. Crazy game. So I've gone for a relatively high-scoring game because West Brom, of late at least, don't tend to be involved in much draws, which is a refreshing change. I think they're either winning or losing, and they lost their last one, so that makes sense that they win this one. So Yeah, I've gone for 3-1, maybe optimistic, particularly as
It's a lot of
Millwall are at
goals.
home. But yeah, maybe that's what I mean in terms of optimism, but you never know. I'm expecting a few this Saturday.
Well, Millwall do offer some solace to the teams in the relegation battle, whereby you just need to get 3 wins in a row and it gets you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wins are hard to come by, though.
What are they again? What do they look like?
It's kind of, it's like a couple of
I don't remember
sticks
that
stuck
feeling.
together like that. Right, on to 2 teams that I think might have managed to pull themselves away from the relegation battle. Oxford United versus Portsmouth. I've gone for a 2-2 Desmond here.
Yeah, it's going to be tight, isn't it? I've gone for a tight Oxford 1-0 win. I'm not so sure about Portsmouth pulling away yet. I think they've now got, they played a game more than the teams in the bottom 3. So you can bear that in mind. I mean, they're not winning many games in the bottom 3, or if any, but they've still got a long injury list. I'm still not convinced the depth of their squad. Did they make enough signings over the January period to get them out of trouble? I still think they might get sucked in. I think Oxford will be fine. I think that the way they're playing, and of course under Rowett, they've got somebody who knows how to make sure they do well in the league. Lots of draws in their last few games. But yeah, tight Oxford 1-0 win for me on this one.
Well, lots of draws for Oxford. I'd say their form under Rowett is kind of stabilised. Maybe it's tailing off a little bit, but all they needed to get them to the summer and safety was that one little run. And that is how you knew manager bounce. That was textbook new manager bounce. Fantastic stuff. But Portsmouth, they're still, tight win against Cardiff last night, and I think that's pretty decent. That's you got to scrap for points where you can get them. And I hear you about they played one more game than everyone else underneath them, but teams underneath them have to kind of win those games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, of course, that's always the caveat down the bottom, is that how much does a game in hand matter when you haven't won forever? But yeah, no, I take the point completely. They're, of course, the only team down there that haven't changed managers either. So we'll see how that pans out towards the end of the season. I'm quite pleased that they haven't. I think it's a good thing. It shows some realism on their part as well. And they're certainly doing probably as expected, right? They're about on par, maybe slightly above par to where they were expected to do when they first came into the league at the start of the season. So certainly no disaster, but I'm still thinking the depth of squad might come back to bite them. We'll see.
I think Moutinho's done a good job, and fair play to the club for sticking with him, really. Right, on to Preston North End versus Burnley. This has a kind of derby-ish feel. Did I get it?
Yeah. They're both Lancashire. So I mean, this is almost too good. I've got nothing to take the piss out of you for. So that's upsetting slightly.
I've got Burnley 1-0, and fair play Burnley as well, because they made it 10 consecutive clean sheets,
ridiculous
in a row, which
ridiculous,
is crazy. I don't think it's ever been done in the Championship before.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, and I know lots of people have talked about Trafford already. In terms of that, you also have to credit Esteve and the rest of the defence as well. They've just been impenetrable, and obviously they're under Parker, it's the classic Parker football. But when you consider what type of football they were playing previously, it's amazing to see that turnaround. Yeah, incredible. You can't. It's impossible, isn't it, to predict them conceding. So for that reason, Preston North End 0, Burnley 1. I think Preston have been doing pretty well recently as well. They've won 3 of their last 5 games, beat Norwich away from home as well. Really impressive. And they've been keeping it relatively tight at the back themselves, but I do think Burnley edge it, as they often do. So 1-0 Burnley.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, last team Preston failed to score against, the mighty Luton Town.
Ugh.
Can you believe it?
No.
Yeah. Dr. Luton.
Very much so.
Yeah, I can see if Burnley managed to navigate the playoffs and get promoted, I can see them sacking Scott Parker for
Yes,
a
me too.
manager that's a bit more adventurous, although
Scott,
remarkable.
yeah, Scott Parker has shown a couple of times that in the Premier League his style just doesn't translate. And I mean, if you look at what happened at Bournemouth after he left, it shows that there's more potential in those squads than he's often getting out of them. You know, that's been his criticism, which I think is still fair. You know, he's yet to take a side who are in any way underdogs. And overachieve. He's never overachieved. He's done what he's expected to do with very good squads, which is still admirable. It's not easy, as Farke proved with Leeds last season. But his limitations are that for me. And as long as he keeps getting teams promoted, he'll keep getting the offers to have very good jobs, and we'll keep talking about Scott Parker 1-0 boring wins.
Yeah, long may it continue in the Championship.
Yeah.
On to QPR versus Derby. This is John Eustace's first game in charge at Derby. I think fair play to him. I've recorded a video about John Eustace and his move. I think it's quite a good one. It's very bold, big bet, but they'll back him at Derby. I've got 0-0 here. I think he manages to tighten up the defence just by laying down the basics in his first game.
Yeah, I've gone 2-2, which again is probably just me wanting more goals than I'm going to get, but the sentiment's the same. Come on, it might. QPR tend to score, but or not. But yeah, when they do score, they tend to score more than one. But yeah, I agree, it probably won't. But I think a draw for the same reasons. I mean, it says a lot, doesn't it, about what's going on behind the scenes at Blackburn, as if we didn't already know. I am a bit sick of the "my club's bigger than yours" narrative, though, that I've seen online recently. Utterly ridiculous. When you run it, I think there's an argument that Blackburn are very lucky that they had all that money in that Premier League season, but then arguably Derby are very lucky that they managed to secure the appointment of possibly the best manager that's ever lived. So, you know, pick your choice. Both of you have done well. Both of you have won the top division. Congratulations. But at the current time, Derby's clearly, despite their position, a more stable prospect.
Yeah, and look, what Jack Walker did at Blackburn, tremendous.
Yeah.
I don't think that will ever happen again. Well, he threw a lot of money at it. Leicester managed to do it without throwing money at it. They bottled lightning. Stories like Blackburn, regardless of how much money was thrown at it, and Leicester, those are stories we need more of in the Premier League. We need that rather than state-run football clubs
100%
winning
that.
everything. We need that. And hedge funds-owned football clubs. We need that. Like Jack Walker, remember, he is a local boy. He did good. And fair play to him. Fair play.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it isn't state-owned sports washing and all of that stuff that goes along with it, which is far too frequent in the game at the top level. Less so here, which is why we love the Championship, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how we made QPR versus Derby a thing about Blackburn and the glory days.
Sorry,
of
everybody.
94. No problem at all. I've got 0-0 for this one. I think
it's more likely.
Anyway, it's going to be boring. It's going to be attritional football. Right, on to two teams chasing the playoff. Sheffield Wednesday versus Super Frank Lampard Coventry City. And I get a lot of hate from Coventry fans. But the reality is, yes, your squad is just that good. And pretty much anyone could have come in. Rest assured, Cov have had a tremendous run of form recently, and it's kind of propelled them onto the cusp of the playoff picture. And if you watch the Who Gets the Playoff video, which is in the description below, I back Coventry to get into the playoff. But I think this is going to be a 1-1 because Danny Roll knows how to set up a team.
Yeah. I've gone for a 2-1 for Sheffield Wednesday. So for the same reasons, really, I've backed against Coventry quite a lot recently. And of course, they proved me wrong quite a lot recently too. They've done well at not conceding many goals too. I really like the look of Sheffield Wednesday. And I think they're not quite got enough to make the playoffs, but they're showing with a bit more consistency at the start of the season. They could really push. It's a shame, of course, that they've got some of the worst owners in football, and you know that's what's always going to hold them back. You imagine what Danny Roll could do with a half decent owner behind him. with a club that size. It's sad, really. But for this game, I think at Hillsborough, yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. Having said that, of course, Barry Bannon, I think, is injured until March, April time.
They've got Stuart Armstrong now.
They have, which is
it's
a great addition, but no one replaces Barry Bannon, particularly not Sheffield Wednesday. But yeah, you're right to have, and that's a good option. But we'll see how Matt Grimes fares as well for Cov, particularly with Ben Sheaf, I think, still injured. So yeah, no, I've gone for a tight 2-1, but I think Sheffield Wednesday will nick it.
I didn't know Barry Bannon was out injured. Do you reckon he's going to come back in like late March with like a full head of hair?
He's been injured. He's doing his rehabilitation in Turkey and just luminous teeth and a full head of hair.
I'd love that. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Right, and the final game, Stoke City versus Swansea, two teams that I think are now in a relegation battle. I've gone for a 0-0.
I've gone for a Stoke 1-0 win, but you're right. It's hard to pick. I mean, it could easily be a 0-0. Both teams looking poor. Swansea in particular, yeah, they're on a downward spiral. They could easily be down there, and Stoke already are. So, yeah, it's a tough one to call. I've gone 1-0. Mark Robins just about, although maybe he's regretting his decision to move so quickly. Needed a bit more time.
He's only had
football.
one win.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? Yeah. So, yeah, I've gone 1-0, but like you say, yeah, a draw could easily be the case as well.
It could happen. Both teams struggling to score at the moment. Swansea obviously losing Matt Grimes. Right, Ryman, it's time for your lock of the week. Who are you going for?
Well, again, I'm trying to mix it up in terms of I've done most of these teams now already, and I'm not going to go for the obvious ones. So I'll go for a Bristol City away win at Cardiff. Wow. I think Cardiff is struggling. I really do. And I think with it being a derby of sorts, I think they'll add the pressure if they lose it as well. Yeah, 2-1 Bristol City.
It's a derby. Yeah, it is a derby. I'm going for a relative derby as well. I'm going safe, though. I'm going Burnley 1, Preston North End 0. Locking that one in. Can't look past Burnley at the moment.
No, well, 1-0 Burnley, safe as houses, that one.
Yeah. It's as safe as you can get.
Safe as James Trafford.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But that's us done for this week. Remember, grab the fixture list in the comment section, copy, paste, put your own predictions in below. We'd love to hear from you. Any comments, just stick them in and let us know what your favourite derby is. I just thought of that right now. What is the best derby in the Championship? Is it Sunderland versus Plymouth? Let us know.
There we go.
Everyone, whoever you support, have a great week and take care.